Okay.
Right. All right. Welcome, everyone. Mike Zagari here. Excited for this webinar today. We have a very, very special guest. And I had the privilege of meeting Cindy in person a couple times now. And I saw her last weekend at SellerCon and got to see her live on stage, really give some great golden nuggets in front of all of the attendees there at the main stage of SellerCon. And she had some great information to share. And a lot of that information she's going to share today with you guys on this call. So definitely stay tuned. Cindy, how are you?
Hi, Mike. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Happy Thursday. I know it's been a nice week back after SellerCon. A lot of memories, a lot of great events over there too, and excited for this webinar here. And first, I would love to tell you guys a little bit about Cindy and introduce her and what she's done, and also tell my story about how I learned about Cindy and what she does. So I have here that Cindy Thomason is the founder and president of Bookskeep, a US-based accounting, bookkeeping, and advisory firm for e-commerce sellers worldwide. She has a passion for data analysis and process development. She uses that passion to educate her clients and help the structure of their businesses to maximize profits. Cindy holds a bachelor's degree in economics from North Carolina State University. She's a member of Profit First Professionals, an organization of high-performing accountants, bookkeepers, and advisors, where she is a mastery-level certified professional. Her book, Profit First for E-commerce Sellers, was published in January of 2019. Wow, nice stuff, Cindy. And once again, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It was great being at SellerCon with you and 2,000 other people and talking about profits and how to make money. And yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, it was really cool. And the first time that my partner and I, my business partner, heard about Profit First was in January. Luckily, we heard about it like 15 days after it came out, I think on like the 19th or something. And thankfully, we both read it right away and we listened to it. I know Cindy did the recording and we listened to Cindy. I listened to Cindy in my car for a couple of days. And I got to really dive into like what makes a profitable Amazon business? Where should we steer our ship? And I started realizing that we were making a ton of mistakes. And it was perfect timing for my partner and I, because we sat down. I remember we were going to head to a conference, but instead we listened to Cindy's book and we spent an entire week together. We rented out an office space. We spent an entire week together and we dove in to all of the strategies that she recommended. And we realized that we were making some critical errors in our business. Now, had we not read this, we probably would have continued steering the ship in the wrong direction for a longer period of time. So as a result of this, we set up our bank accounts like we're going to talk about today. We set up a profit account. We set up our sales tax account, our tax account, all of these different things. And she will cover some of those things today. But I also highly encourage that you guys take a look at her book. It's a short book. It's worth every second of listening to it. So Cindy, thank you once again for helping our business out. I know you're helping lots of Amazon sellers. And once again, super excited to hear what you're going to share with us today.
Well, thank you, Mike. And I didn't know that story. You hadn't told me that before, that you guys didn't go to the conference and you just sat down and worked on your business together. You know, that rings true to me on so many levels. So many times we go to a conference and we get so many ideas and then we're almost come back so distracted. But to take that time and really dive deep into your business, that's just, I'm really tickled to hear that story. And I'm so glad it was productive for you. So thanks for sharing that.
Anytime. Yeah, it was a great week.
Awesome. Well, let me share my screen and we'll get this, we'll get the, oh goodness, everything changes when I start sharing. So let me get the slides going too, and we'll get going here. Okay, here we go. All right, so we all know about me already. So let's move on and let me talk to you a little bit about Mark. Mark is a client. He called me in December of 2015, and he was frustrated. He told me he was on his third bookkeeper. He was a little testy. He wanted to know how I would be different. He still didn't have his numbers for the year. He'd been trying to get them all year, 3 bookkeepers, and still didn't have them. He had placed his orders for his inventory. Now Mark sells on Amazon and on his Shopify store, and he sells equipment for CrossFit industry. So he had all kinds of products out there that people were going to be interested in whenever they made their New Year's resolutions and were ready to get going with their fitness regimen in the first of the year. And he had placed all his orders without really having an understanding of what he needed in inventory, what kind of cash he was going to have to pay for his inventory. He was so concerned about running out of inventory in the first quarter of the year, which is also Chinese New Year for his factory. So replenishment was going to be an issue. And his words to me were, "I feel like I'm flying blind." And I could just sense this frustration from him, that this maze, it reminds me of this maze, and realizing that, you know, Amazon businesses have so much promise, and we see on Facebook and in our forums and at conferences, people that are doing really well. So there's this prize at the end, but yet you're in this maze and you're not able to see your way out sometimes. And I just imagine Mark running into some of these hedges and just getting bloodied from the whole process, because he really sounded frustrated and beat up from the whole thing. And it really kind of became a challenge for me. I'm like, we're going to get you out of this maze. And so we'll come back and talk about Mark in a little bit. For right now, we're going to leave him in the maze. And I want to share with you today the process that Mark went through to get out of the maze. So we're going to talk about the why and the how. I always think we can affect change in our business if we have a process, but if we also know why it works. And that gives us the opportunity to have faith that it's going to help us too. So I want to tell you why Profit First will work for your business, just like it's worked for Mark and many of our other clients. And the why is Parkinson's Law. Parkinson's Law was developed in the 1950s by Cyril Northcote Parkinson. It sounds British, if I could say it like that. He was in the British Navy. He's an officer, and he was studying bureaucracies. And as an economist by training, he knew that there was this law of supply and demand, which says that, you know, if there's demand, supply will rise up to meet it. That's, you know, one of the fundamental aspects of economics. But what Parkinson figured out was that there's a reverse theory, and it's called the law of induced demand. And now we shorten it and we just call it Parkinson's Law, because he discovered it. And the short description of Parkinson's Law is, we use what we got. And I like to use the story of toothpaste to explain Parkinson's Law, because as Mike and I were just talking, we were at this conference last week, and when I got to the conference, I had been on vacation beforehand, and I got there and I realized I had one of those, you know, little travel-sized toothpaste, and I had very little toothpaste in my my tube. So for the 3 or 4 days I was there, every time I brushed my teeth, I would put just a tiny dot of toothpaste on my toothbrush, and I would make do with what I got, with what I had. Now I'm back home, I've got a full tube of toothpaste, and I just string a bead of toothpaste on that toothbrush, kind of like what's in this picture. And the theory of Parkinson's Law says that you use what you got. So when you have a lot of something, you're not as conserving with it. Whereas the small tube of toothpaste that was running out, I conserved that and made it last over the time that I was traveling, because I'm frugal. I don't want to go down and pay $6 for the small tube of toothpaste at the hotel lobby. And so that's how Parkinson's Law works, and it applies to our life in many ways. It applies in terms of toothpaste. It applies in terms of time. You can relate to, maybe you had a paper due in college or high school at some point, and you put it off working on it till like the night before. We had a whole week to get something done, and we're down to the minute finishing it. Many times if I'm asking a client to do something for me, I just give them 24 hours to get it done, because if I give them 3 days or a week, they're going to spend that long to do it. So we use the amount of time that we have. And in money, it's the same way. And if you look at in businesses, most of us have a business checking account, and all of our income and outgo all happen out of this one account. And the challenge that that presents us as it relates to Parkinson's law is that we can't, when we have a lot of money in there, we can't discriminate how much of that money really needs to be used for something else and how much of it is available for us to spend in our business now. So the way around this is to use some bank accounts, and I'm going to talk you through that in a minute. But another example of Parkinson's law and how our current business is set up that works against it is our standard process or standard formula for profitability. And if you've ever looked at a P&L, it's just kind of common, the business knowledge that formula is sales minus expenses equals profit. Well, if you think about that in terms of Parkinson's law, what you realize is if you've got a lot of sales, then you're going to be tempted to have a lot of expenses, and what's going to be left is going to be a smaller amount of profit. So the idea for profit first is that we flip that equation around, and the math works the same either way. So if we take our sales less our profit, we take our profit first, then we know that what's left are the expenses that we really have available to us to run our business. So that's the philosophy, the why behind it. And what I want to show you next is how to make it work for you in your everyday life.
Hey, Cindy.
And yes, Mike.
This was really this really hit home for me during the presentation. This is kind of like reversing everything that we think about, profits or what's left over at the end of the day. No, this is when you bake in profits into the equation, and then you use what's ever left over as your expenses. And just to go back in what you said about Parkinson's law, that's what we were really suffering from in our own business. We had a giant lump sum of cash that was sitting in our account at one point. And then we basically did anything and everything with good intention at heart. We wanted to build videos. We wanted to hire this person. We wanted to go into Europe. We wanted to go into Canada. And before you know it, we made a couple of wrong moves and we were in a worse position. Had we done this, we would have been in a much better position. We would have had profit to at the very beginning. And then we would have known how much expansion we could have done because we would have had that left over. We've done it much more smart in a smart way. So thank you for that, Cindy. I just wanted to chime in.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's an easy trap. Scaling a business is hard. And when we see incomes or our bank accounts starting to grow, our tendency is to figure out how to use that and how to use it always with the best intention, I believe, but not always with the best results that come from that. So if we can change this formula around so that we're more constrained by the funds so that we really know what is available for growing our business, it starts to put some guide rails around it. Still a lot of flexibility, but still there's some guide rails so we don't fall off a cliff. So that's the idea behind it, and the way that that I like to work with my clients is to work with what they already use. And Mike, I think you and I have talked before about bank balance accounting and how often we look at our online banking to understand our how much money is available to us. And when I talk to a room full of people and I ask them this question, I ask them, how often do you look at your bank account? Is it once a month? And I have 5% of the people answer yes. I ask once a week, and I have probably 20% of the people answer yes once a week. The majority of people, however, check their bank balance once or more times a day. So looking at that bank balance is where they're getting their information to make decisions. So the idea behind Profit First is we want to set that bank balance up, or our bank accounts up, so that we get good information, and it's like a dashboard for us. It doesn't replace accounting. We still need accounting for many reasons, but whenever it comes to understanding cash flow and our resources that are available to make decisions, if you're going to be looking at your bank account every day and you're going to be deciding, oh, it's a lot or it's not much, so I'm going to spend accordingly, let's make that bank balance online bank dashboard be meaningful for you. So that's the idea behind what we're going to talk about next, which is creating some accounts that are for specific purposes. Now, the accounts that I'm sharing with you today are what I call quick start accounts. We have a short amount of time. I want to give you something that will allow you to get started right away. And honestly, for my clients that I'm working with one-on-one, we do it the same way, because when you start making changes into the balance of your bank accounts, things can go out of whack in a hurry. So I want people to start kind of slow, understand the process, understand the flow of money. And then once they've kind of got some experience with that and know how that's going to work, then you can get a little more sophisticated with it. So the three accounts that I think you need to set up are, you probably already have an operating expense account. So that would be the B1 account. I'd recommend you set up an inventory account. It would be a checking account, and a profit account. The profit account can be either a checking account or a savings account. Now, if you've read Mike Michalowicz book about Profit First, he really suggests you have that at a separate bank. I find for my clients, the extra work of moving money around can become a challenge. So I'm not a real stickler for that. But I think if you start with these three accounts and start to understand the flow of the money, the momentum that you'll get from operating this way really does reinforce the behavior that you want. So if we take this back to Parkinson's law, what happens is, as we have accounts designated for certain things, we can look at them and at a glance understand how we're performing, and understand that there's not this whole lot of money out there that we need to start spending. Yeah, there's a whole lot of money in inventory, but we're gearing up for Q4 and we need a whole lot of money, and we're not tempted to look at possibly moving into other markets or buying new equipment or subscriptions or whatever it is. So that's how it ties back to Parkinson's law. So let's talk about how it works here for a second. So as an Amazon business, money will come into your bank account typically every couple of weeks. Now, I know there's some variation with that. The idea behind Profit First, though, is to have it on like a every 2-week cycle. So let's go with that example. The money comes in every 2 weeks, and once that payout comes in, then you're going to look at pulling out the replenishment cost of your inventory. So when you get that payout, look at some of your inventory reports and understand, okay, it cost me this much. What I sold cost me this much. And you want to take that amount of money out of your operating expense account and move it over into your inventory account. And the other thing you want to do is look at what's left and take 1% of that and move it over into your profit account. And by doing that, you're going to set yourself up to really understand the flow of cash in a couple of different ways in your business. Now, the first way is the inventory cash flow. Inventory is typically, for the majority of my clients, sporadic. They have seasonality in their business. They have times where things slow way down and other times where inventory is moving quickly. So understanding that cash flow around inventory is huge. It's really important to realize that there may be times when you've collected a lot of money in that inventory account, knowing that you're not going to place an order for your busy season for several months. I had a client I talked to last week, and he is busy at the fourth quarter. And we were kind of tweaking his percentages, and I noticed he had almost $200,000 in his inventory account. And I said, okay, how does that feel? Is that starting to be too much there? Are we putting aside too much? And he said, well, let me look. He said, I've already placed I've got one purchase order out. I'll be paying for that in August. I'm going to have a couple more that I'll pay for in September. And when he did the math, he said, I'm going to have a little over $200,000 that I have to pay for here within the next 90 days. Having this money set aside for this is just a huge relief. I don't have to worry about it. And it's not too much. I just need to know, leave it alone, because it's going to be here for me. So getting a feel for how inventory moves through your business, and how your payment terms are, when you have to start making payments on inventory, and all of that starts to have a flow of its own, but it's typically somewhat sporadic and not really as smooth as what we're used to seeing in our operating expenses.
Hey, Cindy.
Yeah, Mike.
Real quick, with all that money sitting in your bank account and the inventory account, how does one resist the urge to invest into new products? There's a lot of pressure for people to expand and get into new markets and all of that. And, if you use it for inventory, how does one really make that decision? Is it that you have to square away and make sure you can make your future payments, and then whatever's left over, you can reinvest into new products? Any idea about how to go about that?
Sure. A good question. The model that I showed, let me just go back to it, is based on replenishment cost. So in this situation, you're setting aside money knowing that you're going to have to use that money to replenish what you've sold. Now, most business owners want to grow. They either want to grow in their sales of that product, or they want to introduce new products. So the way I recommend that you grow is, if your margins allow for that, then you need to add like 10% on top of that replenishment cost. So if you're going to get a $10,000 payout and $3,000 of it is going to go to replenish your inventory, then bump that up by another 10%, 15%, whatever your plans dictate and your cash flow allows. Then you can bump that up to start building that inventory account up for the purpose of either expansion in sales or expansion in additional products. So that's one way to do it. And that's what I recommend initially for people. When this machine really starts working and you kind of get the feel for it, and you've got your cash flow kind of smoothed out and understand how it's working, then you might want to create an entirely different account for product development and product launches. And you can create an account for product launches and put that 10% directly in that and watch that build up. And that will help be the signal when you've got enough money to launch that next product. That makes sense?
Very clear. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Sure. Okay, so let's talk about operating expenses, because operating expenses is where everybody has an opportunity. I very rarely look at a client's books without seeing an opportunity to cut in the operating expenses. Most of the time, we're able to cut $1,500 to $2,000 out of monthly operating expenses. What I want to tell you here is that you need to do that exercise, because as you take the cash out of your business and set it aside for buying new inventory, you're going to be operating with a lot less cash in your bank account. And that doesn't feel so good. And so for you to start to feel like you're getting a handle on your operating expenses and that you can live within your means, you need to be sure you're looking at those operating expenses and that you're cutting out anything that you don't need. Now, one of the things that I think Profit First does kind of indirectly is that it puts pressure on your operating expenses. And by doing that, it causes us to operate more frugally, it causes us to be more efficient, and it causes us to be more innovative. So if you can operate with those three things working for you in your business, you're setting yourself up for success. If you get sloppy and you aren't paying attention to those things, what happens is somebody comes along that does, because they're leaner and they don't have the cash to throw at problems. They have to figure out other ways around them. And by doing that, they have to operate more frugally, and as a result, or they're more innovative in many cases, and as a result, they're cheaper in what they bring to market. So the pressure that this puts on your business is the right kind of pressure. It should be a good task of thinking about how you can operate more efficiently, because that's when you think through those issues, that's when a lot of times you have breakthroughs in how you can provide a product or get a product to market in a less expensive way.
Hey, Cindy, real quick, this is something I absolutely love to do. I know I probably do this a little bit more often. I have two businesses and I have my personal account. I love to go in probably weekly. Sometimes I do it every 2 weeks. And I go in and I'll look at all of my statements and really ask myself, is this something that I need to have in my life? Is this software something I'm using? Can this expense be chopped? Can I sharpen the saw in some way, shape, or form? And let me tell you, almost every single time I go in there, I find something new to chop away, or I'll find a hidden expense like in my PayPal account with recurring expenses. Or the other day I found my Shopify account. I found like 6 or 7 different charges I didn't even know about. And these were apps that I had forgotten about that added up to like $70 or $80 or $90 or whatever it was. But it felt good to be able to chop away that inefficiency, which made our company more margins and more profitability.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear you talk about enjoying doing that, because I mean, it's kind of like cleaning out your closet. You just feel lighter after you've done it, right?
Yeah.
And I do recommend people go through periodically and look at it. It kind of moves us into our next topic, which is frequency. And I think if you would do that at least quarterly, you will find things that need to be cut out. So when you first get started, go at it with a vengeance and get out as much inefficiency as you can. But then don't stop there. Every quarter, things will creep back in that you have good intentions to be using a software, or you have good intentions of taking a course or whatever, but then things don't just pan out. So if you can cut them out, pay attention to those fees, it really get yourself in a cycle where you do that every quarter, and you'll see good results from it. So let's talk a little bit about frequency, because cash flow is a flow because of a rhythm that's created. And so there's this rhythm that's created both in our inventory account, which is more sporadic. It may have more high points and low points. And there's also a rhythm associated with our cash flow type rhythm associated with our operating expense account. And that's probably will look a little bit more smoother. To get a picture and understand those patterns, you need to make it a habit of touching your accounting twice a month, and not a whole lot more than that. If you will, on the days of your payout, move your money around and just observe what goes on day by day after that, you'll start to see when you run out of money. Perhaps some of the payments that you have towards the end of the month, there's more month than there is money, and you have to make some adjustments. You'll start to learn whatever those patterns are. And by understanding those patterns, you can do things like change the date when you pay your bills. You can ask your credit card provider to switch up the date that you're billed. There's all kinds of things you can do to make that all smooth out as much as possible. But the idea is to get into a rhythm. And the rhythm is twice a week when you get your payout from Amazon, you allocate to your inventory and your profit account, and you make sure that your bills are going to be covered during the next couple of weeks before that next payout comes. So get in that cycle of every 2 weeks, whenever the payout comes, that you pay attention and do your accounting on those days. The other rhythm that's important to think about is a quarterly rhythm. So I talked about putting money in the profit account. The other side of that is that you're going to take some of that money out every quarter, and you're going to take a distribution from that profit account quarterly. And the way that's going to work is you're going to look at what you put in during the quarter, and half of it's going to stay in there. The other half you're going to take out, and you're going to do something to reward yourself. Many times as business owners, we're left holding kind of the short end of the stick. It's like we give. This is the place where you get rewarded. And you may be paying yourself too, but this is the reward for being a business owner. It's similar to if you own stock in a company and you get a quarterly dividend check. Think of it like that. This is your reward for taking the risk of being a business owner, and you want to do that quarterly. Now, there's as I mentioned, you're going to take half of it out. You're going to do something to reward yourself and your family for the risk and the sacrifices you make to be a business owner. The other half of it, you're going to leave in your bank account, and it's going to accumulate. And over time, you're going to have a rainy day fund built up. And as I talk about rainy day funds, I'm always reminded about my client, Carol, who had $14,000 worth of inventory shipped into Amazon that got lost. And we talked about what to do. She was building up money in her inventory account to launch a new product, but she was so afraid of running out, she decided to buy another $14,000 worth of inventory and send that into Amazon. About the time it got there, of course, they found the first order, but they lost the second order. But, she kind of averted the problem of running out, and she was okay with knowing that her cash was going to be tied up a little longer in inventory. And that, we felt like everything had worked like it was supposed to, and then her account got suspended, and she was suspended for 11 days. And the money that she had available in her profit account is what she used to operate her business on until she got reinstated and was able to start collecting a payout again. And I suspect, Mike, this is not the first time you've heard this kind of story. I think it's pretty common in the forums that there's suspensions and issues around that sellers run into that they need to be prepared for.
Absolutely. This is something that is part of our business model now. We have to save for rainy days. We had recently 2 of our best SKUs go down because we had words in the listing that we didn't even know were considered illegal, I guess, in Amazon, against terms of service, let's call it. So, and that's the word toxic. We had it in there for years, the word non-toxic. And then all of a sudden somebody reported us, and it took us 2 weeks to get those SKUs back up, and we lost a boatload of money. So yeah, and that's just one issue that happens along the way. There's lots of issues that go on. So having a rainy day fund and budgeting for that is essential.
Yeah. And it is for any business. I mean, we do it in our personal lives, or we should be doing it in our personal lives. You never know when your air conditioning is going to go out, or your refrigerator, and the same thing happens in our businesses. So let's just be prepared for it. The tendency to continue to plow back into our business all the money that we make so that we can grow quickly is not the most prudent strategy. And I have seen people, I've worked with clients who fight me on this all the time, but I have seen it happen over and over again where they're so strapped that they do not have the ability to weather any kind of storm, and any kind of anomaly can put them out of business. And I'd rather sleep at night personally. I don't think that's the way to go. So we talked about bank accounts, and I also want to talk a little bit about credit cards, because credit cards are not going to go away. I am pretty sure that I could not talk most of my clients out of using credit cards. And Profit First, if you read Mike's original Profit First book, he talks about not using credit cards in your business and using debit cards. Debit cards don't come with points, and so therefore I don't think e-commerce sellers are going to be parting with their credit cards too soon. So I want you to be able to use your credit cards, and I want you to have a strategy for using them in a profit first way that's going to keep you whole in your business. So one way to do that is to, just like we're separating bank accounts for the purpose of keeping up with inventory separately from our operating expenses, do the same thing with your credit cards. If you are paying your suppliers with credit cards, then have one or two, and that's what you do. You only put inventory on those cards. And then have another card that is only for the use of your operating expenses. And what this will allow you to do is you can compare your balances on your credit cards with the amount of funds that you have in your bank account. So if you're going to have $5,000 on your operating expense credit card, do you have $5,000 in the bank to pay that right now? And if you do, you're operating from a position where you can cover your debts, and you're actually not operating in a debt situation. So I recommend that you separate them, one, so you can start to see how much inventory is building up on a card versus operating expenses. Both of those are good independent information. But I also want you to compare it to your balances on your bank accounts. Many of my clients use Amex, and Amex will allow you to go over a limit and build up and build up. And what has happened to a few of my clients is they built up fairly substantially, and then Amex has come back and cut their line and just said, you're way beyond where we're comfortable. You cannot add any more onto your account. Now, they were in a situation where they were paying their bills off every month. But what they were doing was the sales from future month were paying for past purchases. So in effect, they would have to continue to buy stuff and sell it to pay off their last month's bill. And when we're talking substantial amount of money. He went from one of them. I had three of them happen within a short period of time. When you're talking about $375,000, that gets cut down to $150,000 balance requirement. Suddenly you've cut out a couple $100,000 of future sales that you're going to have a hard time coming up with. So I strongly recommend you keep those credit cards in line with what you're able to pay for. And in that way, you can build up your points and cash rewards and all those things we like about it, but we're not getting ourselves overextended.
Hey, Cindy, while we're on the subject of credit cards, I'm not sure if you're done with that yet. Do you mind touching upon Amazon lending?
Oh,
if you think that's a good idea for Amazon sellers?
I'm not a fan. And here's why. Amazon lending typically comes with a couple of restrictions that I find kind of challenging. One is they're going to collect their payment from you before they send you your money. So you have no control over paying that balance back. And the second thing is their interest rates are typically not as good as what you might find if you went out and got a line of credit or a loan from your bank. Now, Amazon loans are better than a lot of these payday loans that I see folks use, like On Deck, and there's another one, Cabbage. Those types of loans, typically their interest rates are not as good as what you can acquire in a traditional way. But Amazon loans are better than those, not as good as a traditional loan. And for me, though, in the past, I've seen them have really short payment windows. So you would take out a loan and only have 6 months to pay it back. And maybe you were buying inventory in a future, for a future, like selling in Q4 to kind of start to build up. And those sales aren't going to come for a while, but those payments are going to be automatically deducted out of everything that you sell. So not having control over the payment window is, to me, a challenge for folks. So I'm not a big fan of them, but they have gotten better. I know I have seen more recently some longer terms, and so that piece of it I think is improving. But if you can do it some other way that's more a traditional loan, you'll come out in a more advantageous position, I think.
Yeah, and if you guys do an Amazon lending loan, make sure not to sign a personal guarantee. Would you agree with that, Cindy?
Yeah, and most of the time I've not seen them require that for clients.
We've heard it.
So you have heard it?
Yeah, personal guarantee, which basically means if Amazon makes a mistake, you're on the line.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely would discourage that in any kind of loan. You want your business to get the loan, not your personal, not have your personal house, et cetera, tied up. So, to the extent you can borrow without tying up your personal credit, that's exactly what you want to do.
Right.
Okay. The next thing I want to just share with you and make available to you is I've put together just a one-page sheet of how to put this into place. I call it our quick start guide. If you're interested in it, if you could text the word profit to this phone number 66866, then we'll email that out to you so that you have that to just follow along and be sure you get things set up. And hopefully it will give you what you need to get going and start to get a feel for how cash flows through the business. Now, Mike, I don't know if you had any questions that you want to cover that we haven't covered already, but I wanted to be sure we had time for question and answer.
Right. So you did answer a lot of my questions, and I do have a question about profitability in terms of what would be a good overall account profitability to make sure you have enough money to pay yourself, to reinvest back into the business, and also for operating expenses? What would you say?
What I suggest for my clients is they need gross margin of about 35%. Now you can do with a little less than that, maybe 30, but 35% is going to provide you with what you need to cover your Amazon fees, to cover your cost of goods and all the prep work that might go into it, that will provide you then with enough funds to pay yourself and have operating expenses and to have money to set aside to grow your business. We all have to be considering, expanding in our existing product sales, looking for ways to have better marketing techniques, et cetera. But we also know that products have a life cycle, and we need to be investing in new product ideas and new product launches. So it's not enough just to have the engine set up and working and taking your profits, et cetera. You need to be preparing for the future. And the clients that in our practice, when I look at profitability, those that are doing well are those that are at about 35%.
Awesome. Well, I don't have any more questions, but Cindy, I would love to now share my screen and go over margins. And I want to first thank you for that amazing presentation. And I'm sure everyone who listens to this is going to get a lot of value out of that. And for me, the biggest takeaway was, yes, we have this awesome opportunity, but we have to be very smart about what we do and how we allocate our funds and how we grow and expand. Too aggressive, and we could end up, in a bad state, a bad position. And we have to make sure that we are not falling prey to Parkinson's law, which happens all over the place. So Cindy, once again, thank you so much for sharing this wisdom and knowledge. And I'm going to now share my screen and show you guys margins. And basically one of the reasons why I contacted Cindy too in March was that we had read Profit First, and we really took action and really, really just took action on all the stuff. We set up our bank accounts. We started to steer the ship in the right direction. And let me share it. There I am. And hey, what's up? So my partner, Mike, and I then realized, hey, we wanted to figure out a way to improve our margins on Amazon. So we wanted to make sure that we were getting the most amount of money back from Amazon so that we could improve our margins overall, and then reallocate those funds into new products, into operational expenses, and into paying ourselves profit. So we then started to work on a tool. Well, we actually started before, January, but it started very rudimentary. It started off with just FBA fees because we were being eaten alive by FBA fees. Amazon was making mistakes. So we wanted a way to measure that. We wanted a way to catch Amazon's mistakes. And we found a way to do that. And then we realized, well, there's other things that Amazon's taking money out for. There's PPC ad spend. There's promo fees, there's returns, there's storage fees, all of these little paper cuts that at the end of the day, if you don't keep track of this on an individual SKU by SKU basis, how are you going to really know what your margins are on your individual SKUs so that you can make better decisions, get rid of the ones that are costing you money and reinvest in the ones that are profitable? So that's where Entourage Margins was born. And I showed this to Cindy. Cindy, what was it, like back in maybe April or May?
Actually, before that, I think we talked at Prosper. So wasn't that March, maybe ASD?
Yeah. Yes, I think it was. It was a while ago. So
yeah, it was a while ago.
Lying, and basically, I showed her. If you guys can see my screen, let me just.
Yeah, I see it.
Awesome. Okay, so what we went over is we wanted to show Cindy and her team like the different margin eaters that go into an Amazon business, and that's where Entourage Margins was born, because we just didn't know how much money we were taking home at the end of the day, and we were having cash flow issues. So the way this is broken down is you see your sales overall for a given time period, and then you can see your organic versus PPC sales. And then we have what's called margin eaters. Now, we recommend a typical percentage for each margin eater. And you can see here, we have the PPC ad spend, which is 8%. We recommend between 6 and 10% PPC ad spend margin impact. So what we're measuring here is the margin impact on your overall sales, how much PPC ad spend is eating into that. Then we have the biggest margin eater of all, which is FBA fees. As you can see, our products are kind of heavy and bulky and not too expensive. So unfortunately, the biggest margin eater for us is FBA fees. We recommend between 25 and 40%. And I can tell you this has been a battle for us because Amazon consistently remeasures our products and makes mistakes here. And we have to keep an eye on this on a regular basis. So if you're not doing this, I can almost guarantee you that you can, if you went into, let's say, a margins account, or if you started tracking this in any other way, you're going to see Amazon has made a mistake, and you're going to see that your products have to be remeasured because you're paying way too much in FBA fees. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Next, we have returns. So we want this to be between 2 and 5%. Obviously, it could be a little higher depending on the category. If it's clothing and accessories, that's going to be more like 10%. But we want to know how much are returns eating away at our profit margins. And here we can clearly see by 2.28%. Then we have promo fees, which includes promotions, coupons, and lightning deals, all of those things lumped into this category of promo fees. And here we are at 3.49%. We want that to be between, I believe, 3 and 6%. And then we also show storage fees as well as tax that is a pass-through, and this is what we've collected and have to pass on to the authorities. So the beauty of the system here is that it allows you to see the individual margins, the product margins. First, you can see your overall profit margin, and we are below what Cindy recommended, so that is an issue, and we have to get more profitable products. I mean, this is something that we are going through as Amazon sellers, and it's clearly stated here inside of Entourage Margins that we have to find products that are have higher margins. But as we go down here, you can see the individual parent and child variations, and you can start to see which ones have good profit margins and which ones do not. So for example, we have this parent product over here has 19.52% profit margins in this time frame. So if I click on this down arrow over here, we can start to see the individual variations and what their profit margins are. And this is where it starts to become a diagnostic tool. It's going to help give us some direction to determine which products we want to, A, make some changes on. Maybe we want to do less PPC ad spend. Maybe our FBA fees have been impacted in some way. Maybe our promo fees are too high and we have to reduce our promotion, whatever that might be. Or what about just chopping this product away because it's just, for whatever reason, it's costing too much and you're not getting enough in return. So if you go down over here, this is what we do and use as a diagnostic tool. And I like to start my day every single day looking at my overall profit margins, looking for trends, and then looking at the individual SKUs to see what my profit margins are over a period of time. And I will go down this page and check it out. And if I see something that's really obvious, like 3.63, something happened here. there's something that went on, whether I spent way too much on PPC, maybe I did a promotion and I didn't like catch the promotion, or I have to go in there and readjust my promotion. Maybe my FBA fees got tweaked. And that's where I'd go ahead and I would do some individual SKU by SKU investigations and then take some action inside of Seller Central. One more thing that we find truly, really a game changer is tracking the different margin eaters over a period of time. So here you can clearly see that we were, the top line here is FBA fees, and we run around 41%, 41%. And then all of a sudden one day we went to 44% FBA fee margin impact. Amazon remeasured our product, and now our margins are being impacted. Now, guys, this is money that you're likely not going to see, you're likely not going to get back. So prevention is key. Monitoring this is key, and taking action once you find it is absolutely critical to increasing your bottom line. And if you're not doing that, I can tell you from experience, weeks can go by where Amazon's taking excessive fees from you, or you have an excessive PPC campaign that's underperforming, and you're just giving your money way back to Amazon instead of reinvesting it into your business, or like Cindy said, taking some money for yourself and putting it into your profit account. So this is something I always go to. I go to the margin eater chart over here, and I'll look at PPC ad spend and FBA fees in particular, because that's where I feel the most amount of money is spent and where you can make some really big, quick changes and get some quick wins. So then right up here, we have the different margin eaters. Now, each of these different margin eaters has its own dashboard. And if I were to go into, let's say, the PPC ad spend section over here, you can see the PPC ad spend over the given time period and the margin impact. So we're impacted by 8% on average. And some days it's higher, some days it's lower. Here we have a 10%, then it goes down over here to maybe 6%. And then the beauty is you can see the impact on an individual SKU by SKU level. So this SKU is impacted by 8.69%. And if I look, that's a parent SKU. If I look at the individual variations, check this out, 14.09%. Now that's very high. That's above my ad spend margin impact of 6 to 10%. So here is where I would start to make some optimizations, and I would perhaps use PPC Entourage, the original software, to make optimizations and save money on ad spend. Or I would simply allocate more money to some of these other SKUs to try and balance this out, because some of these have a very low ad spend margin impact. What I love also over here is you can see the organic to PPC ratio. We want this to be around 80-20. We want 80% of our sales to come organically, 20% of our sales to come through PPC. In a perfect world, that's how it works out. We're paying for 20% and 80% we're not paying for. So that is what we're striving for. As you can see, this is off over here. So what this tells me is we likely lost some keyword visibility, and now we have to pay more money to get the sales that we used to get. This used to be like 80-20, but something happened. This is worthy of investigation. This is worthy of keyword tracking. What I want to show you also here is that each product has its own dashboard. And in the product dashboard, you can see the different margin eaters for this given time period. As you can see, this has gotten killed on PPC ad spend and FBA fees. This is also supposed to be around 40%. So this combination has made this particular SKU have a really rough month, where we should have been like 22, 23, 24% margins. We're down to now 15% margins for this product. It still has a decent ROI, but of course we want to, make some adjustments, make some changes, check that out, and make sure we can look at the overall picture and steer the ship in the right direction. I'm going to share with you guys just one more thing so that I don't overwhelm, because I've been told that I tend to do that. So this is going to be the last thing that I show you guys. I'm now on the FBA tab over here, and the April 16th date is where we have this big issue with 44% FBA fee margin impact, which I shared with you guys before. If I go down over here, I want to find out which SKUs are the culprits for causing me to spend more of my money on FBA fees. Because like I said, Amazon's likely not going to give you that money back. And if you go down the list over here, you can start to get a feeling for the SKUs that are the problem. So here's it's very minuscule, but check this out, guys. Right over here, April 16th to 17th, we had a lot of orders with an excessive FBA fee just for this one product right over here. So I would investigate this. That's one area of investigation. Then if you go down over here, you can start to see where there are some fluctuations. Check this out. You can see this is 8.46 average FBA fee, and then it goes down to 983. Now, these are dozens of orders, and it all adds up, and you want the lowest possible FBA fee possible. Check this out. There's also more issues over here with this particular SKU. I see a bump right over here. I would go to this bump and then do some further investigation, and I would see that here we have an issue on the very last day. It went from 5.58 all the way up to 6.84. We have had issues with this SKU where it's gone up to like $10 in FBA fees, unfortunately. So we have to monitor that. And you can set an alert inside of Entourage margins. So the final thing I want to share with you guys, if you do find an issue in your FBA fees, which is very likely, what you can do is you can go ahead and click on this button right over here. And now what this is going to do, it's going to highlight the issues. It's going to highlight all of the orders. And what I want to do is I want to find orders that have an FBA fee that's higher than $5.70, or well, you know what, we'll do $6. And then we're going to enter in the correct FBA fee, which is, the correct FBA fee is $7.08. So I'm going to put in 7.8 based on our chart. And then on this day, we had an average FBA fee of 8.2. So I'm going to put in, find all of the orders above $8. All right, guys, hope that makes sense. And then I'm going to download this as a PDF. And what this is going to do, it's going to pull all of the orders, and it's going to show you exactly how much Amazon owes you based on this. Then you can potentially submit that for reimbursement. So just to be 100% straightforward with you guys, it is a lot easier to prevent this than to actually get money back from Amazon. So we have an alert system set up inside of Margins to let you know when this happens, so that this way, if you see an issue arise, you can take action right away. And what I would do is say, hey, Amazon, we have an issue here. Then you would simply click this button, copy this to a clipboard, send this to Amazon, and they will remeasure your product to make sure that you're not overspending. Okay, guys, so the name of the game for Margins is to keep more money in your pocket. And I think Cindy and I align and resonate on that goal alone. We want to help you to improve your businesses, keep more profit, improve your profit account, keep more margins. And my job is to help you guys get more money back from Amazon. Cindy's job is to help you organize that money so that you don't, that you allocate it to the right buckets and that you steer your ship in the right direction. So that's all I wanted to share with you. Cindy, do you have anything else that you would like to share?
No, it's just that I'm excited about this product, Mike, because it's been like the window or door we couldn't open and see easily in the past. And so now when we have our bookkeeping clients or our clients that we're advising on Profit First, when we see that their fees seem out of line, we have a way to help them dig in and understand what's going on so that we can address those. In the past, we've just been dealing with the money that they get, and we haven't had any opportunity to go back into the ecosystem, and this gives us that, and we're super excited about it, and so excited that you brought it to our attention and that we've had the opportunity to work with it with some clients now and feel like it's really going to bring value to what we can do for them and what they can achieve in their business. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. And we're so excited about this, to bring this to clients and bring this to Amazon sellers. It's just the start of something really cool. So there you have it, guys. You have the 1-2 punch. Keep more money from Amazon and then allocate that money that you get into the proper buckets using the Profit First system. Cindy, what was that number they can text to get access to your free guide?
It's 66866, and they type in the word profit.
All right, go for that, guys. And for sure on Amazon, I got the Profit First book. Give that a listen. It'll help you for sure change your mindset. It's a bit of a different mindset than what you're used to hearing out there about being fully aggressive and just going for it and all this kind of stuff. This is a business. This is a long-term play for many of you. And this book I highly recommend. Cindy, thank you again so much for joining us on this webinar. And can't wait to see what you got coming up next. And congrats on your book.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
All right. Just got to make sure you save it. I think.
Okay.